Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peach.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
Well, I know it just sort of underwent a bit of a change in leadership in the whole papal kind of situation. And for a long time, there's been discussion and sort of thoughts about what the Vatican knows about UFOs and UAPs. But sort of, I think more of the UFO era kind of talk. And this is going to get into that a little bit. It's kind of interesting.
I'd never equated the Vatican with or correlated the Vatican with UFOs at all or UAPs. So this is
No
going to
one
be
ever
very
has.
interesting.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
be great.
All right, let's get into it now.
A while back, News Nation reported a claim from a Pentagon whistleblower that back during World War II, Pope Pius XII tipped off the U.S. government about the recovery of a partially intact UFO that Benito Mussolini's Italian government had discovered. So will the new Pope open the vault and share the secrets below the Vatican?
Well, if it was if the
No,
had been
is the
if the
answer
new
there.
if the new pope had been Filipino, it definitely would not have opened it. But since new Pope Leo, I don't
He's
know. He's
American. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he will, but
Chicago.
I mean, it seems like counterproductive to their kind of narrative and kind of what they do. But I do believe that not just the Catholic Church, the Vatican, but other um, religious entities probably have evidence of some of this stuff happening. And again, it kind of lends itself to not ancient aliens like what's his face, aliens guy, or any of those folks on that particular show. But I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we've been visited for a long time, and there were probably lots of instances where there were accidents or evidence or items and things like that they were able to to get. So it's not, and especially with the Vatican. I mean, again, the second, is it the first or second biggest biggest religion? I think right now, I think Islam is number one. I think Christianity is number two, and Catholicism specifically is like the biggest one. So sort of imagine that reach, right? And the ability, especially in the olden days, to sort of collect some evidence. It would not surprise me at all if they had a lot of stuff that they couldn't explain, right? Maybe trying to attribute to God, maybe, but they don't know how to do it yet.
Right, and this is a pope, obviously, who kind of lives in that. Sorry to some of our viewers who may be super devout, but lives in the uh, mythology of the Catholicism and Christianity. Looking at this now from a scientific lens, right? So it's not like, oh, this is an angel that came down from heaven. No, this is a freaking UFO. Uh,
Right, and they've been involved in investigations into exorcisms, into demons,
yeah,
and
but
They like tried to kill. They killed Galileo basically, and all these things. Like this, science and religion are not mutually exclusive.
no, I agree. But demons are still in the realm of the faith. It's still part of the faith versus part of science.
Right,
An
right.
alien, an extraterrestrial, that's not a demon. You know what I mean? I think that's something that definitely is separate from this world. So, all
Well,
right.
I think that certain religions and even in Catholicism might see it as demonic. Like they don't know what it is, so they can't explain it. And whenever they can't explain something, they usually attach that to kind of sort of moniker, right? So
Right.
who knows what they really think and what some of them and what some of the documentation says. I would love to be able to read that.
All right. Well, let's continue here.
I'm joined now by the host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus, Ben Hansen. Ben, it is so crazy to think that there is a nexus between
Try
the
and trust this
Vatican
guy wearing a hoodie.
and UFOs, but that's something that was actually discussed in testimony before Congress.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like straight out of a Dan Brown novel, you know, Da Vinci Code stuff.
Yeah.
Is the Catholic Church involved in a cover-up, something they don't want their membership or the world to know? You know, David Grush comes out and he talks about this 1933 case where supposedly the U.S. military was tipped off, like you said. They come in, take this UFO, this object, take possession of it at the end of World War II. And allegedly, the Catholic Church has not only records of that, but perhaps going back to centuries, documentation of UFOs or perhaps alien visitation.
Yeah, I mean that is interesting that there is at least the claim of evidence of that happening and uh, influence and action from the Vatican and then informing the U.S. in 1933. I mean, maybe I don't know. Again, I think that that organization, as I would call it, is pretty good at gathering intelligence, and if something happened, I might believe it if I were able to look at the description and kind of what happened there, and especially if they had any kind of like tangible evidence, like physical evidence of something like that happening. I can totally believe that. It to me that makes a lot of sense.
Why the Vatican? Why did the Vatican call the U.S. though?
Well, in 33, I mean, I think they were kind of worried about kind of what was going on
Oh,
and good old Germany and in the Deutschland and things that were going on. And the Nazis were atheists in a lot of ways. They didn't believe in religion. So it's something that I can understand why they might want to go to like a United States to go to, because it's not like a pure Protestant nation. And there wasn't any at that time, Catholic or Protestant, but certainly had a good mix, and it was kind of on the ups as far as influence goes. So
makes sense.
yeah.
All right, we'll continue.
So here's what, if P then Q, I'm thinking, why would they keep everything a secret? Because if, their followers, their congregants, they're beyond Catholics, if people start to realize that it's not an Adam and Eve story and it's not just Earth and there's a lot more to it, there goes religion.
I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, that theory, because the idea is the same, concept perhaps that you talk about. Perhaps was Jesus married? Did he have children? The canonical, doctrine of many religions is very kind of set in stone. And so to go back and kind of rewrite history and to say, okay, well, perhaps not only we're not the only ones in the universe, but what if they don't look like us? Right? You have, scriptural reference to making God in man's image. So what if they don't really look like us? Would that mean that people lose their faith? Would that mean that they're going to kind of panic and give up on religion? And what about the authority of religion and membership?
I mean, there's a lot to sort of unpack there. I mean, there's like all sorts of things. Like there's the different religions involved with it, the control of information. If the Vatican happens to have that, thinking about that, right? It's like, okay, we can't lose this power. But I don't know. I don't know if I buy all that idea that people are going to panic, because I think if you look at the world today, it's a lot more, even in the US, a secular that version of things that hasn't really been able to like blossom more yet. I don't think that we're a super religious nation in certain areas. In certain areas, we are. There's no doubt about it. In certain parts of the United States, and I think there's the idea of that trying to be brought back into certain societies. But I mean, if you have incontrovertible evidence that there is something else outside of us that doesn't look like us, I'm not going to panic. I'm like, yeah. And I think if you look at the descriptions in the Bible of things, or even in Islam or in Judaism and looking at their various books, there's a lot of like crazy shit that happens and like does not look like us that goes on in the Bible,
Hmm.
right? So could that be alien? Maybe. And so if you look, you sort of think about it from that perspective. If you're trying to like mold a narrative ahead of it, that's what I'm kind of wondering about. Some of this stuff is like, are they trying to mold a narrative ahead of it so that people aren't freaked out? Because yeah, they don't look like us. Okay, they're gods and demons and angels and all that kind of stuff. There's flaming swords and they got like 10 heads and the
Yes.
serpents and all that kind of shit. I mean, that seems to me like, oh, okay, that looks like maybe something that might be alien. And so I almost wonder if there's some of this a little bit coming out that's trying to like sort of get people ready.
Yeah, well, because I mean, it was a Pentagon whistleblower that apparently is the one that surfaced this, and actually, it is about power, right? I mean, in as much as it is, what you were saying that if this is something that happened and the Vatican needed to get an ally to cover it up, it's because of power,
Yeah,
and
100%.
they know that the U.S. will cover it up just because it's the same type of, it's the relationship that they had with the Vatican, that they continue to have with the Vatican. It's about holding on to power.
It's in their best interest. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Interesting. All right. We'll continue here.
or that they should indefinitely keep it covered up.
Or you have to rewrite a few books to incorporate the universe instead of just Earth, But I am curious about the official position that the Catholic Church takes on extraterrestrial possibilities.
Well, it kind of depends on who you talk to, right? So the keeper of the records or the secretary to the prefect of the archives has come out and said that they absolutely do not. They don't know where Grush got this idea. They said they don't have any documentation of extraterrestrial life, and they're dissuading researchers from asking anymore. So there's kind of like a process, sort of like filing a Freedom of Information Act. You can petition the Vatican, see what they say. Will you let us into your archives? And they're saying, stop looking for it. We don't have any of that here. Now, I personally do know of people who have had access to archives. And I do know, according to them, that the Catholic Church has kept records of things such as demonic possession for centuries, very detailed records. But as to the UFO subject, that's more of a mystery. Like you had mentioned in the beginning, 50 miles of shelving, they probably don't even know what they have in there.
And that kind of reminds me of like the end of like the first Indiana Jones, where they put like the Ark of the Covenant into like some like random shelf and like it's never to be seen again. Yeah, kind of thing. 50 miles of shelving. That is like, it's amazing that they have that, right? It's pretty cool, but how much information is just lost because nobody's looking at it.
Yeah, and I would also, uh, I don't know, it's like, what's the frame of mind of the person who's documenting this information as well, and how filtered is the information by the time it gets to the documentarian. So,
Yep.
I think, it's one of those like, okay, well, that's miles of things I want to take with a grain of salt, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you don't know what's real and really what's not until you actually get to look at it.
Precisely. All
Yeah.
right, let's continue here.
30 seconds left, but is there any hope that the new pontiff might be a little more transparent, might open up the archives and let people take a look-see?
Well, I would just say that if you look at what happened under Pope Francis, they did revise the guidelines as to what is considered a miracle, how to investigate or accept something as supernatural. And so the new Pope probably will follow those same guidelines. It makes you kind of wonder, why now? Right? Is there something about now that they think might be coming down the road as to why they have to stay ahead of it and kind of have a standard whereby they decide if something's authentic or not? So.
Hmm.
And that's kind of, I was mentioning earlier, it's like they're trying to control the narrative a little bit and they know more than they're saying.
Right.
But they want to be the ones to kind of control that, but their flock, I guess.
Like what like we're ready now, or not we. I'm sorry, I'm not a Catholic or I'm not Christian, but that they're ready now for it.
Yeah, like there's incontrovertible evidence that they have, and being is as tied in as they are with the various European nations and with the U.S. and even with Russia, or not to Russia, but to the what do they call it, the other side of Christianity, the Orthodox Church kind
Mm.
of thing, and sort of looking into that, and like they all have a little bit of this. They've been holding back from us, and like yeah, and because of like phones and cameras and all these things that we got, it's like we better get ready to sort of get on board with this and sort of get ahead of it so that
Right.
we can manage the narrative.
Right. There's no hiding anymore. Everybody's seen Independence Day, so we know that possibilities exist. So, all right.
Exactly.
Well, that was good. I mean, I think it's like I said, this guy, the new pope is American. He's from Chicago. He's probably a realist. He's already, um, kind of shown a little bit of his personality and what he stands for. And so it'll be pretty interesting. Yeah. Open the vault, Pope Leo. All
Do
right.
it.
If you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe. And on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.